The hits just keep on coming in Kansas City as the Kansas City Chiefs have now signed defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu. There we go. Marlon Tuipulotu. And guys, just a reminder, I dropped a video this morning on Bailey Zappi signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. There is a video on the practice squad on the way, a 53-man defensive rundown on the way, a 7-round mock draft on the way, and a video about Veach being a buyer at the deadline, as the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel. So if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for daily Chiefs news, analysis, and opinion. But right now, we're here to talk about Marlon Tuipulotu and what this signing means for the Kansas City Chiefs. The first question, obviously, to get out of the way is, who is Marlon Tuipulotu? A 25-year-old defensive tackle out of USC, he was drafted by the Eagles in round 6 of the 2021 draft, pick 189 overall. He is 6'1" 7/8 inches tall, 307 pounds. So he's undersized in both of those categories. He has 33-inch arms, which is a good number, 10 3/8 hands. He ran a 5.38 40-yard dash, had a 30.5-inch vertical, an 8 7-inch broad jump, and did 29 reps on the bench press. The 5.38 is not a good number. The 30.5-inch vertical is a pretty good number for a defensive tackle, and the 29 reps on the bench press is a good number. He has 28 appearances in his 3 years in the league. In 2021, he has one start as well. In 2021, he had 55 snaps. In 2022, he had 232 snaps. And in 2023, he had 162 snaps. The interesting thing about this, 2022 was a season where he had the most snaps of his NFL career to this point, but 2023 was the most impactful season of his career, having played around half as many snaps. In 2022, he had 16 tackles. In 2023, with about half the snaps, he had 22 tackles. In 2022, he had 1 tackle for loss. In 2023, again with half the snaps, 3 tackles for loss. In 2022, he had 1 sack. In 2023, he had 2 sacks. In 2022 and 2023, he had 2 QB hits, and in both years, he had 3 pressures as well. So, if we are allowing ourselves to read a little bit into this, the Chiefs did not make the initial investment in Marlon Tuipulotu, so it's easy to come in and say, well, he's showing obvious signs of improving his production by around 33% while losing half his snaps. That says he is making more impact per snap than he had in 2022. But we know how that feels when a player is showing minimal progress, but still progress, right? We have had several defensive tackles. We have had several players on the roster that have shown progress, but not up to what we would hope. So him being cut by the Eagles is maybe not surprising, not particularly surprising, but it does not mean that he is not a player who is improving. He showed obvious signs of improvement in 2023 over 2022. Now, the next thing to address, what's next? The Chiefs have to make a corresponding roster move. Right now, the practice squad has Matt Dickerson, Neil Farrell, and Fabian Levette all at defensive tackle. That's 3 names already on the practice squad, so you would imagine one of these guys gets cut. I find it hard to believe they keep 4 defensive tackles on the practice squad, and it is tempting to believe that Fabian Levette is the most safe because he is a rookie that showed signs in camp, flashed in camp, and looks to be a guy that could be a type of defensive tackle that I'm going to describe later in this video when we get around to that. But the fact is, Fabian Levette is already 24. He's a rookie, yes, but he's already a 24-year-old rookie. Tuipuotu and Neil Farrell are only 25. They are only 1 year older than Fabien Levett, despite the fact that they have 2 and 3 years of experience, or 3 and 2 years of experience, respectively. Matt Dickerson, the veteran of the group, is only 28. That said, the active roster has 27 offensive players and 23 defensive players. So the defense might rightfully own the practice squad. It might be that the defense gets to keep more players. Steve Spagnuolo gets to keep more players on the practice squad because he doesn't have as many on the active roster. Still, it is difficult for me to believe that if Steve Spagnuolo gets a disproportionate number of players on the practice squad, he would want to designate 4 of them at the defensive tackle position. The next thing on this list, to DT or not to DT, the great search continues. The Kansas City Chiefs have been searching and searching and searching for a defensive tackle to put next to Chris Jones that might make an impact for this defensive squad. It is fairly easy to find a big guy to put at defensive tackle. It is rare to find a big guy who can really play the position. So type A defensive tackle, you can put on the field and not be embarrassed. Type B defensive tackle, up a step on the ladder, is a guy who can really play the position. Type C on the defensive tackle ladder is a guy that can really make an impact. So there's A, a guy that can be on the field, B, a guy that can make a difference, and C, or a guy that can really play, and C, a guy that can really impact the game. But between level A, a big guy, and level B, a defensive tackle that can really play, there's a little bit of space for a big guy, not necessarily too big, right? But we're talking about defensive tackles. A big guy who can be molded into something looking like a guy that can really play the position because he can do 1 or 2 things really well. This is more obvious at the wide receiver position than it is at the defensive tackle position, but the same rule applies here. If you can find a guy that can really stop the run, you can make him look like a guy that can really play the position. He ends up emulating a guy that can really play. The Chiefs, right now, the Chiefs have one really special athlete, obviously in Chris Jones, and a bunch of big guys that you can put on the field to play the position. They are struggling to find those big guys who can be molded into a role. They keep cycling through big guys that they hope to be able to mold into having a role, hoping to accidentally unearth a big guy who can really play the position. The big guys who are impact players are normally pretty obvious, like Chris Jones, though Chris Jones had to learn the position for a little bit, and if anybody thought Chris Jones was going to be Chris Jones, he wouldn't have been drafted where he was drafted. So I stand a little bit corrected there, but the number 4 thing to note here is the scouting report on Marlon Tuipulotu. In my opinion, this is a smart player. That's a good start. He's got good vision on the field. He's a player that has a strong upper body. He is a former wrestler, and it shows. He has the wrestler type of physicality to his game. So what is the wrestling type physicality? These are guys that sometimes look like bullies on the field because they can use your body against you. Creed Humphrey oftentimes will use the leverage provided by a defensive tackle as opposed to trying to force him whatever way he wants. What way are you wanting to go? Okay, then we'll really take you that direction. That is the sort of thing that Marlon Tuipulotu is able to do on the field as well. He's not fast, and he's not particularly explosive, and that shows as well, which is a little bit confusing because for a 307-pound guy, a 30.5-inch vertical is not a bad number. It is my guess that what is going on here, what will happen here, if he spends longer on if he's on the Chiefs roster longer than a specific cornerback that was just sort of rushed through town in order to make a name for himself or lack thereof. But if he sticks around with Kansas City, my guess is the Chiefs are going to try to get him up to the 315 to 325 mark and make him into a run stuffer. He's a guy who has some mobility. He's a guy that doesn't look bad on the move. And if he could become a really immovable guy, if he could put on 10 to 15 pounds, 10 to 20 pounds, I guess, what you're looking at there, if he does not lose the mobility, is a big guy who can be molded into a position. Because I think he's decent enough against the run at this point. He's budding into a guy that can make a difference in the passing game. It is difficult to really imagine 2 sacks, 2 hits, and 3 pressures from a practice squad defensive tackle. If he's a practice squad level defensive tackle, I don't think he puts up those types of numbers. So we'll get into the final point here. What are we doing here? Right now, he looks to me like he's kind of a slow Tershawn Wharton. And what the Kansas City Chiefs seem to really be trying to find, seem to be trying over and over again to find, is a fast Derek Noddy, a type of player that I believe they thought they had found in Colin Saunders. Colin Saunders didn't quite work out. They moved on from him, brought back Derek Noddy. They're looking for that strength against the run. I could see Marlon appearing on the 53-man roster this season. I also don't know if this is the last move that we see at defensive tackle. The struggle for these Kansas City Chiefs to find a playing mate for Chris Jones goes back years now, and I don't think Marlon Tuipulotu is the answer. I think that he can be a complementary piece. I think that he could be a guy that is more impactful than Matt Dickerson. Matt Dickerson, it seems to me, is the big guy that you can put on the field. Tuipulotu seems to be a guy that might be molded in to a big guy that looks like he can really play. I think they thought Derek Noddy was a big guy who could really play. I think the hope is Fabian Levette is a big guy who can be molded into a particular role. I don't know what Neil Farrell is still doing around. Not trying to take anything away from him. I haven't seen it. We never saw it with the Raiders. I haven't seen it so far in the Kansas City Chiefs. You would think that he would be ready to be on the 53-man roster as opposed to a practice squad guy. It appears that was not the case for the Kansas City Chiefs and Neil Farrell. I imagine Neil Farrell might be the name that gets cut, but there is still promise in Neil Farrell. He is a very big guy who looks like he can really move. I think that that's going to get you a whole lot of opportunities in a way similar to the fact that Kadarius Toney kept getting opportunities, and he kept getting opportunities until the Chiefs aren't giving him any more opportunities. So I think that this is an interesting signing, and it might be that he gets into practice for the Kansas City Chiefs and finds himself on the active roster sooner than not. He does show flashes of a guy that's not manipulatable on the field. He shows signs of being a guy that maybe can't impose his will, but can stop offensive linemen from imposing their will. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. The Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping daily news, analysis, and opinions on the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting that subscribe button in order to stick around for more Chiefs content in the future. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.